Hello, my friend. This is Clyde. Her story can become your story. Heathen, poor, and outsider, faith. I hardly expect you to guess accurately who we will be talking about. Her name is Ruth, and she came from a heathen nation called Moab. Moab was the son of the incestuous union between Lot and one of his daughters. Later, when the Jewish people were wandering around in the desert for 40 years, the Moabites was a group of people who encountered the Jewish people, and they led them into things like prostitution and idolatry. Many years later, a Jewish man, Elimelech, his wife Naomi, and their two sons, Mahlon and Chilion, could not handle the famine in Bethlehem in Israel, and they migrated to a country that was not experiencing a famine. They went to Moab. They found food there, but this family also found a mixture of experiences. Not long after arriving, Naomi's husband died, but in time her two boys were fortunate to find wives, one lady named Orpah and the other was Ruth. Those marriages lasted 10 years before both husbands died without having children. Can you imagine what was going on in Naomi's mind? She brought her family to this strange place, and it has been one bad experience after another, and now all she has left are two daughters-in-law and no grandchildren. It was around this time that this woman who had buried 3 men in her life heard that things had gotten better back home. The famine was over, and so she packed up her little things to return home. The girls decided to go with her, but she did all she could to dissuade them from coming. It seems like these girls must have had good marriages, or why would they want to go to a foreign country with this poor woman? One more time she gave them a reason to stay in their country. Even if I had a husband tonight and then gave birth to sons, would you wait until they grew up to be married? That makes no sense, does it? Then you heard Naomi's true feelings. It is more bitter for me than for you, because the Lord's hand has turned against me. Ruth 1 verse 13. Sometimes we go through some rough experiences and it seems that God is punishing us, that God has turned away from us. That is a dark place to be, and that was where Naomi found herself. Orpah, she saw wisdom in what she heard, but Ruth, she persisted. Don't urge me to leave you or to turn back from you. Where you go, I will go, and where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God. Where you die, I will die, and there I will be buried. May the Lord deal with me, be it ever so severely, if even death separates you and me. Ruth 1 verses 16 and 17. You cannot argue against such determination. Would you be a Ruth or an Orpah in a situation like that? When Ruth and Naomi arrived in Bethlehem, the people saw 2 women, both widows, both poor, one filled with bitterness and self-pity, and the other filled with hope. And especially when they arrived at the time of the barley harvest. You have chosen to serve God and things are not going well, but somehow you won't turn away from God. Somehow a flicker of hope emerges. Ruth saw the barley harvest and faith rose up inside of her. Is this what Jesus meant when he told the disciples that if you only have faith as small as a mustard seed, you can move mountains? Matthew 17 and verse 20. I believe that was another faith step for Ruth. The first step of faith was the speech of determination she gave Naomi. And now she arrives in Bethlehem and she sees the barley harvest. My friend, what's in your heart? When the going gets tough and things seem hopeless, when you've walked the long, dusty road of tragedy and pain, and others tell you to give up, go seek life in the obvious, they say, what do? When Ruth saw the barley harvest, Ruth knew that all was not lost. The rest of the story is one of humility. Ruth met God in provisions. When you reap the harvest of your land, do not reap to the very edges of your field or gather the gleanings of your harvest. Leave them for the poor and for the foreigner residing among you. I am the Lord your God. Leviticus 23 and verse 22. Do you hear what the Bible said? This is part of the Torah. This is part of the Jewish laws that God gave them. From a long time ago, God laid this law down, and here is Ruth, a poor woman, a foreigner no less, and she was on the dawn of a new day. Ruth found hope in that law. Ruth experienced that law, and that law brought her more than food. It brought her a husband. What did she say a while back? Your people shall be my people, and your God, my God. Come on, my sister Ruth, come on. God is about to turn things around for you. Let me cut to the chase and rush to the end of the story. Ruth's story has been recorded so that you can find hope in the most unlikely way. I'm telling you, God had a plan for Ruth, except she did not know it. But a long time ago, Ruth was introduced to Naomi's God, and Ruth decided that she was going to serve Naomi's God. And that decision landed her in the genealogy of the Messiah. My friend, it is not over until God says so. And this poor foreigner discovered that God had more for her than what others could see. Ruth the foreigner, Ruth the poor foreigner, became the wife of Boaz, a rich Jewish man, and they had a son. Come on, Ruth, talk to me. Go on, my sister. Ruth and Boaz named their one son Obed. We never heard of any other children to that union. God can work with one mustard seed, one poor woman, one son Obed, who became the father of Jesse. But God still had more for Ruth. Jesse had 8 boys, and the last one, not the first or the second or the fifth or the seventh, but the last one was called David. Who was David? David was the grandson of a poor foreigner who married David's rich grandfather Boaz. David became the second king of Israel, and hundreds of years later, the angel of the Lord told a poor Jewish girl, "You are about to get pregnant, and the Lord God will give your son the throne of his father David, and he will reign over Jacob's descendants forever. His kingdom will never end." Luke 1 verses 32 and 33. I don't know your story, my friend, but today I feel compelled to introduce you to the God of Ruth. Don't go back to where you are coming from like Orpah. Don't give up on God, for God only needs a heart of faith, and the rest can be history. Trust God. Trust God. Trust God. He has not forgotten you, and he will come true for you.